you love soup as much as I love soup? If you do, you have to check out this video because I've gathered together some of my personal favorites. Roasted tomato soup, spicy tortilla soup, and cheddar and broccoli soup. All right here, right now. Look at all these tomatoes. What am I gonna do with them all? I have an idea. I'm gonna make soup. Today's soup is really delicious and a little bit different because it's a roasted tomato soup. So delicious. Cut 4 pounds of plum tomatoes in half. I like to use the plum here because they have less liquid in them, so the soup will end up thicker and a little richer. But I suppose you could use regular tomatoes and then just cook them down a little more. Up to you. To intensify the flavor, roast the tomatoes, and I'm gonna roast them with some garlic and some onions. Get everything nice and sort of cook down a little bit before I simmer it with my stock. 2 medium onions, dice them up. They don't need to be too fine because the soup's gonna be pureed later. It's amazing how onions really add so much sweetness to things when they cook down, right? I just love that. 3 cloves of garlic, release some of their aroma, and then everything goes onto the baking sheet with the tomatoes. Just get them down in there with the tomatoes. Drizzle with a 1/4 cup of olive oil and season with salt and pepper. You can season again later when you puree the soup together. Have your oven preheating to 450 degrees. And what you want to do is roast your tomatoes and onions until the tomatoes are dark brown in spots. That should take about 35 or 40 minutes. After 35-40 minutes, the tomatoes should be done. Now they're ready to cook even further into a soup. Just scrape them into a large Dutch oven, and then to that add 4 cups of chicken broth. You can use homemade if you have it. That's always better. You'll probably need a little more salt if you do that. When the soup comes to a boil, you want to turn it down to a simmer and then let it cook uncovered until it's slightly reduced and the tomatoes are really nice and soft. When the soup has simmered for 25 minutes, it's time to puree it. I'm going to use an immersion blender because I have one and I really like using them. If you don't have an immersion blender, use a regular blender, but make sure that you only fill it about 1/3 of the way and then cover the top with a towel because hot liquid expands and it can be a little crazy in there. It's really sweet from all that roasting, so I think it needs a little bit more salt. I said I didn't want more pepper, but I do want more pepper. There's not a lot of seasonings in here, so you want to make it really full flavored with what you have. I think sprinkling a little basil over the top at the end as a garnish is nice, or you can stir it all in and flavor the whole soup. I don't know about you, but summer is my favorite season, and I like to eat as if it were summer all year long. Make this soup, and you're gonna be able to. You are not gonna believe what I'm making today. I'm making a broccoli and cheddar cheese soup. This one also has mushrooms in it, which is completely up to you. If you don't like mushrooms, you can leave them out. To start off with, slice up your mushrooms. This is about 1/2 pound of mushrooms, or about 3½ cups sliced mushrooms if you buy your mushrooms sliced. Now the recipe doesn't say to, but I actually like to saute my mushrooms a little bit before I add my liquid. This is 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter. Melt it in the medium saucepan and add your mushrooms. Now you can add 2 cloves of garlic that have been minced. Get that fragrant just a little bit. Cook it until it smells delicious. 6 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. Stir the flour around. It's going to get very thick and coat your mushrooms. Now you can add your broth. It's 1/2 cup at first of chicken broth. This is just to start the thickening process off without getting it lumpy. It's 2 cups of total chicken broth. And then on top of that, 2½ cups of water. You want to bring this mixture to a boil and then simmer it until the mushrooms are tender and the liquid is thickened, about 20 minutes. So now that it's cooked down, you can add your broccoli. I have about 2 cups of small broccoli florets. You want to simmer these until they're tender. That'll just take a couple of minutes. Broccoli is bright green and tender, so I just turn the heat off and I'm stirring in 1 cup of cheddar cheese. And then you let it melt, and then another cup. Rest of the cheese. This is kind of ridiculous, you guys. Look at that, creamy as can be. A little salt and some pepper. I think that's fantastic, and it's done. You are not gonna believe this. I think a hunk of bread would be fantastic with this, or even some crostini would be great. But of course, fantastic on its own. Mmm. Holy moly. It's fantastic. Looking to spice up your life? I mean, who isn't, right? Why not try this spicy tortilla chicken soup? You're gonna love this recipe. It's a super easy and delicious chicken tortilla soup. Start off by mincing 2 cloves of garlic. So you're gonna wanna saute your garlic just a little bit in some oil. Use vegetable oil in this instance. Add your garlic. You just want it to get fragrant. Really shouldn't take very long at all, maybe 30 seconds. And then add 4 teaspoons of chili powder, a tablespoon of tomato paste, and a cup of diced tomatoes. Just cook this for a minute or two to develop the flavors and meld everything together, and then you add chicken broth. Add 10 cups of chicken broth. And then you need to bring it to a boil and simmer it for about 10 minutes, not very long. While you're waiting for your liquid to come to a boil, take advantage of your time and make some tortilla chips. All you need to do to make your tortilla chips is cut up some corn tortillas into strips. I have like 3 here. I'd say maybe 1/2-inch strips are good. Have your oven preheating to 400 degrees. And then put them on a baking sheet. And you can drizzle with as little as 2 teaspoons of oil, or a little more if you're feeling generous. I like to season with a little bit of salt too. And then just toss it together and 400 degrees until they're golden brown and crisp. That should take about 8 to 10 minutes in a 400-degree oven. While you're waiting, get your garnishes ready. I have an avocado here. Those are ready to cut up, and then a lime. Now that my soup is hot, I'm gonna stir my chicken in. It's nice and hot. I'm gonna stir 4 cups of shredded chicken from about 1 whole chicken into the soup. Be careful of the splashing because it's very red. Stir it just to heat through. The great thing about this soup is you can serve it however you want, and people get to garnish it with whatever they want. So spoon up some soup, a few tortilla chips. You might want to taste your soup and season it. You might need a little bit of salt, I'm just saying, you might. A little bit of avocado. Previously prepared avocado. And then a little bit of cotija cheese, if you can get it. If you can't, you can leave it out. You could maybe use feta if you really wanted to. It's not exactly the same. A little bit of cilantro. And some very thinly sliced scallion. And don't forget a squeeze of lime. It's a super hearty soup, extremely fast. What do you think? Spicy enough for you? It's fantastic.